I'm Andrea Chacon, and thank you so much for looking at my garment pieces that I created this past year for my fine arts show or my fashion show. Um, it's something that I've been wanting to have since my freshman year, when I helped Fashion Two with their fashion show for their class project. Um, it was just a really inspiring day for me. It's a core memory now, but it's just something that I poured my heart and soul into it because of how it was one of like the few times where I can fully express myself without any fear of it being like outside of regulation or something. Um, because I didn't have to worry whether it's wearable every day or not, or if it's like a waste of fabric, because it's not a waste of fabric if people enjoy it, and if it's something that I get to as show as a testament to what I've learned since freshman year or before that, because I would still do like little projects here and there. Like I would create like bags, or I would embroider little pieces um, for things as gifts. Um, but it was just a huge, like, it was at the, it was a huge like weight off my back while also giving me pressure to do things, which is something that I really needed because I have not had a way to fully let myself realize my dreams, and it was wonderful. But moving on to what happened during the process of creating the fashion show, I did create most of the pattern pieces for it, or I would just go straight off what I knew. Like the white dress that I created, the Pearly Day, is one of the dresses that Jasmine wore, and that one did not have any it did not have any pattern pieces. It was just draping squares, which is something that was used in ancient Greek style. That's how they would drape their togas. They would just get some rope, some thread, and that was it. Well, and the square fabrics of cloth, because they wouldn't do anything more complicated than that. It would be squares or triangles, um, which would be the squares cut in half. It was very simple, and that's what that dress was mostly inspired by, as well as the myth that was of Aphrodite's creation, how with the pearls, how she like it, the whole how she came from the sea like that. But that is what inspired that dress, and that one is the one that took me the most to get right because of how simple it was. It wasn't something that I could just look up, because I had a very specific way I wanted it to be draped, and the fabric itself was not elastic at all. It was something that would need to be walked in, and something that would hopefully be wearable in in any special occasion, because it is just a simple white dress. Um, but along with the blue one, the blue, the first one with the gold, the one that Callie wears, the golden blue, it's that one was the one that took me. I think it had the most learning curves in it, because even though I have been creating pieces for the longest time, well, for a few years at this point, I've always tried staying away from shorts and pants, because something about like that seam felt would always feel a lot more complicated than it was. So that one really pushed me to get out of my comfort zone, because that is like a tracksuit, well, not a track a jumpsuit, I guess, um, where it's one piece and then the skirt was detachable, which I thought was like a really neat way of incorporating its original design, which was let's see if I can find it. Was a it was just a blue dress, and it was supposed to be reflective, because I created it based off of the necklace itself. That was the inspiration for that dress. It was the necklace, which was why she wore it. It was all just circled around the necklace that I found one day. Oh, this was the original design for it, so it was kind of close. But there was another. It was one of the other designs for it was just a really long dress with like a slit, and I couldn't think of a way to make it until I remembered that skirts can be detachable. So that's where that was, and then just being more like a trail I guess, because of how long I made it, because I wanted it to trail behind her. And that's what that dress was. It was just so much fun. It was a lot more um, copying the pattern pieces from some clothes that I had, taking some shorts that I really liked how they fit, and then um, just tracing them as well as I could without destroying them. And the sleeves on that dress were way more complicated than I ever imagined. I would have thought that would have been the most simple part, but it was not. But that one had a lot more of how do I want it to puff up, because I knew the sleeves had to be puffy. I don't know why, but I felt that they needed to be puffy. Um, so it was more of how many ways am I gonna do it? Is it gonna be like four brands holding it, so like it's four giant puffs, or it's just gonna be like the two around the arm and the wrist, and then we'll figure it out from there. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. It wasn't excessive, and it was just really nice, like something that you could actually go out and wear, like maybe for like clubbing or something. I don't really know what you wear for that, but something that's just night out on the town, I guess. And that's mostly what the first part was. And then the one that Melody wears, the second one, the Red Sun. That one was a lot more fun to say, I guess. I suppose it was a lot. It was things that I knew that I could do, and I just wanted to see if I could put them together. Like the the bodice was a lot more like ideas of suspenders. It wasn't like this is a shirt I've seen and I wanted that. It was more of a I wanted it kind of like suspenders, like it hangs from the waist and then you can tie it in the back, and it's like, and then it was a circle skirt, and I added some pockets, or at least I was going to before I realized I don't have time to do that because I was running short of time because the year was really starting to pick up. And it was just so much fun to make. And then when I had the sleeves and how it looked on her, it was all beautiful. Um, I I knew that it was gonna look good, but the way that she wore it really just put it up to the next level. Also with Melody's confidence, which all just like meshed so good together. Um, and then for the third one, the Fairy Tale Night, the one worn by Stephanie, it was I designed it while I was watching Snow White, which is where the color scheme came from. Because I've seen so many different takes on how Snow White would look in a modern day that I wanted to try my own hand at it. And I realized that it went with the theme of my show. And I was so happy with it because of that. And the colors and like the stay top, well, the stay inspired top, because it's not exactly a corset, it's more of a stays. Um, it just meshed really well, and I loved it so much that I decided to make it. And I do plan on wearing the red cape every day. I will not every day, but when I can, because it's super fun to just wear. That's the one piece that I've just adored as soon as I made it. But it was a lot more. Well, I've never worked with so much boning. I've the last piece I made only had like maybe 5 pieces of boning, and that one had a lot more than I've ever used. It was really like the first time I've made anything that structured, and I used zip ties for the boning instead of going out and buying the boning, because boning is expensive, especially when it's like high end, and that isn't something that you're gonna be tight lacing or tying to like fit you as that tight. So it should not hurt. And if it does hurt, then it just means that it's something you wear when you like go out for like an hour at most. But um, that one was just so much fun, and then with like the mini skirt that I added to it, it was great. Um, and then with I already talked about the fourth one, the Pearly Day with Jasmine, which I loved. And then there was a dance in the middle that me and a couple of friends choreographed because I wanted to give the models more time to change. And it was just 3 songs, the Desde esta noche, Looking at Me, and Me Necesita. It was just a mashup of the 3 songs that I just thought were really fun, and would help hype up the audience in a way. Um, and that one was performed by Cadence, Abby, Trinity, and not by Abby, by Hannah, Trinity, and Natalie. There was a lot of complications with that performance last minute because one of the performers couldn't make it. Um, but it was so much fun. It was originally gonna be a more jazz funk, but it did end up going more jazz with some. I think we yeah no and some very little hip hop thrown in with maybe some contemporary. We were trying to just doing anything that we felt fit the style. There was partner work. There was a dip. There was a like a there was a couple of jumps. It was so much fun to make. We would always stay over because of how much fun we were having just making the choreography that we would just stay over. And Miss Moore definitely helped so much with that. Well, not well, she helped teach us how to choreograph, but the entire dance was created by us. She would throw maybe a couple comments on how we can better it, but it was mostly just me and Cadence, Cadence Roscoe, and that I'm just so happy with how it turned out, and I know it turned out like so good, so wonderful to look at, because all of them exuded such a great energies while performing it, and I just wanted to thank them, which I didn't really get to thank because of how busy I was that day. And then starting off with continuing on with the fashion show, there was the fifth dress. Once the models all changed with complications backstage because of that, because of how a lot of the dresses were lace up. I wanted it all to fit everyone perfectly, and I felt that that was the best way to do it instead of using a zipper or buttons. So that did cause some complications backstage, which I was not expecting, oddly enough. But yeah, so with the Starry Sea, or the blue tulle dress that Callie wears, her second dress, the fifth dress overall. That one was just so much tulle. That tulle, spent an entire day just trying to dye it to the color that I wanted, and trying to different experience to see if I can make it more splattered, more uneven, trying to reflect the ocean, because that was an inspiration for the dress. That just the ocean, just whenever it's like about to become stormy or at night, the night ocean. I always loved going to the beach at night, so I felt that was a great inspiration, and it was just so much gathering of the tulle once I had dyed it to the color I wanted and then washed it, because dyes do have harsh chemicals in it, especially the ones used to dye synthetic fabrics. Yeah, it was a ton of gathering. I think overall I used about 20 yards of tulle just in the skirt, and some of the fabric that was originally used for the suit that I had left over, because I did order extra of everything just in case I ruined a piece and I could make it. So that it also helped tie it back into the rest of the line, just of that exact same shade being used twice, or yes, twice. It was just, and it looked great on Callie. It wasn't, and with like the whole design, that one went through a lot of redesigns because I could not pick out the right way I wanted it to be. Like, this was the original design for that. I don't know if you can see that, but I hope you could see that. That was one of the designs for it, and then later I designed it into this. It was inspired by the Sleeping Beauty dresses from the ballet, because that was one of the things that Miss Moore told me to look into, because I asked her for some inspiration that I can find from ballets, and it was Sleeping Beauty and a couple of other ones. So that one was, and then later it became this, until it finally became the dress that was on stage. So a lot of redesigns until finally I could put it into like use, put it into like actions, I guess, where I just created the piece and let most of it become instinct on what I was doing. I tried not to overthink everything, because then I would hesitate way too much on what I was doing, and eventually it would just be like I was out of time and it would have to be rushed, and I didn't want any of the pieces to be rushed. Um, so if it was instinct, then it was just pulled on like straight from my head, straight. It was just things that I knew would be done. But then, anyways, continuing on. For Melody's second dress, Golden Light, as I called it, which is kind of funny because she's like super golden. She's the sweetest person. But so it's kind of like the title is also her. But on the dress, it's just that one. That fabric from that dress was originally used for a competition that I did last year. That was Cinderella's dress originally, but I was never happy with that dress. So I thought of a way. I was thinking of like ways. I knew I wanted a gold dress because I felt that would really tie in. Um, and so then I thought I have that fabric. I really love that fabric, so I'm gonna take it and see what I can do. And so it became a handkerchief skirt with like the bodice, which was just like a halter top, and I put them together, and they looked so good. And I thought, yes, I want this more of a fairy tale dress. And I added the sleeves, like billowing sleeves, and the corset belt, which was really fun to make. It was a lot more difficult because of how thin and the fabric was that I used for it. It was like if I stretched too much, it would just pull apart. So I had to like really be careful with how I was sewing it, where I was cutting it, and it was a whole process. And I did use zip ties here again because zip ties are an affordable way to do boning. Sorry, and that pattern I did have to find online because I had never made a corset on my own before. Or at all. Really, I've made some really bad corsets, but I really wanted this to look really good, really professional, or as professional as I can because I'm not a professional. And that one was just so much fun. That one also went through a lot of redesigns, but I don't know if I drew any of them. It was a lot more in my head or like on my tablet where I could just erase anything that I did not like. Let me try finding it. Yeah, I think I did end up just getting rid of them because I was never happy with how I designed it. It was a lot more of just not it. Just something about them never felt right. Like I think this was one of the ideas for it, and it was just not it. Um, but yeah, that one also didn't really have patterns. It was more of a finding pieces of fabric that fit and where I could put them, and it looked so good, and I was so happy with it because I wanted all of them to have a sense of uniqueness to them that others didn't. Yes, yeah, and then there's only a couple dresses left, and then there was the Bernadette one was her Stephanie's second dress. It was the red one, and it was just I could never find a way. I wanted a red dress. I knew that the next dress had to be red, so it was more of a trying to find a way that I could make a red dress, have it its own like unique vibe or aura, and it just came out as that. And that design for it was originally this. It was going to be a lot more complicated than it turned out, or a lot. Well, it's very similar actually, but it was just something about them never really fit. And I think I actually designed this because I was watching the Three Musketeers and I wanted to try my own hand at period piece, but not exactly period piece because that show did have some of the dresses were just not period accurate, but it just went with like the aesthetic of it all. And that's how that dress came to be. And I was trying different colors. Originally it was brown, and I was like, no, that doesn't fit at all, and it doesn't look that good. So I tried the burgundy or like the dark red that it was, and it fit so nice. And I couldn't find the right way to do the belt or how to tie it in at the backs, and just ended up becoming the way it was. And it still turned out amazing. Well, I think it was amazing. I made it. I put my so much work into it, and it turned out great. So it was between the veil or the lace, and I went with the veil, and I feel like that was the better option, um, for reasons, as I suppose it was more instinct. I tried relying more on instinct on this because it was, if it's instinct, then it's more pure, and I think in my head. But that one was a lot more simple. It was just the bodice, which I'd already made a couple times. It was just like kind of like a princess without all the extra seams, and then the skirt with the slit in it. I wanted it to be high, but not too high where she would feel uncomfortable, because I didn't want any of them to feel uncomfortable, because I wanted them to feel powerful when they wore their pieces, and that's how they felt. By the way they were walking, they seemed really happy with what they were wearing, and it would just always, it made me so happy to see when they were trying them on and the day of. And then onto the last piece, guys, we're almost done. Was the sailor blue, the suit that I made for Jasmine. It was her second piece, and it was just something. It was originally called like power suit, because I wanted someone to feel powerful, because suits always make you feel powerful, I think, because I know that's how I feel whenever I wear a blazer and a dress shirt, at least. And it's just something that made you feel so confident that you feel like you could rule the world, and that's what I wanted for that. And the inspiration from that one was sorry, my throat is dry. My inspiration for that was a sailor suit from, just, I don't even know what time period it was, but like I have a very specific sailor suit in my head, and I haven't been able to find a picture of it. So that's what the inspiration for that was. That's what the seam right down the leg, which made her look taller, was like it was, that one was from a couple years ago, actually. The original design for that one, for that pant leg, was, this is gonna be scary, this is from a couple years ago, was this. And then I thought of ways that it would be more wearable, more who I am now, and it came out as that, with the gold button at the bottom, and like just the gold buttons, gold details, with like the dark navy blue, the dark blue suit in the fabric, which was also really thin, because this is Arizona, and I wanted it to be something that you could just wear whenever you wanted to feel more powerful, or just had to look more professional without dying of heat. And turned out great, I think. And the way that Jasmine is able to just wear anything and make it look 10 times better, is really amazing. Well, yeah. And that one, I also did have to get another pattern for the pants, because, well, I looked at a pattern more. I found it online and I didn't print it out, but I just was able to, I just fully looked at how the pattern pieces were and how they worked, because I already had experience making shorts, but I felt like pants were a lot more complicated because of how long they are, and if you get the cut wrong, then they might not be able to bend their knees, and or maybe they won't be able to fit it through their ankle or something, which would be kind of weird if they couldn't fit through the ankle, because then it wouldn't fit through their thigh. But I felt like it had to be a lot more specific on the measurements, and it was kind of, there was a lot more darts involved that I made, and then I just looked at the pattern piece, and I looked up ways to make my own pattern piece for the pants, and it turned out into what it was, and it was something that would fit really well, and it was a bit more high-waisted than it was, and the halter top that was made for that one was made out of the same fabric that was used for the red sundress that Melody wore, and it just really tied it into. And the blazer which had a light blue lining in the inside, and some, did I add pockets? I was gonna add pockets, but I was also freaking out because I've never done a blazer before, or I tried staying away from sleeves as much as I can, so when I made that too, it was also a bit more because of the blazer. I've never made anything so complicated. There are so many pieces. There are 4 panel pieces in the back, and then the 2 in the front, because people do have muscles like everywhere, and body fat and like all that, and it's just human body is really weird, guys. But it was a lot more of trying to get the seams right. I believe I bought a pattern for that. I did have to buy a pattern for that because of how complicated it was compared to all the other pieces, which, yes. And it was a lot of that one. I already knew it was, so like the design was already done after the first draft, but it was a lot of more trying to fix it while I was making it because of it, of how it was. And I ended up being really happy with it because even though it's not as sturdy as suits are, it's a lot more, it's also casual and formal at the same time. Like it's something that I could just wear out and, well, if I wanted to. I don't really wear blazers out, but I do wear dress shirts out. Anyways, but I was just so happy with it, and I am so proud of myself because I've never, like, it's something that I really put everything into, and it just turned out amazing, and I was so happy that day. It was just um it was just a whole another experience, and I'll never forget that day. Hopefully I'll never forget that day. um I didn't document it for myself because of how I was running around place to place trying to fix anything that happened last minute or things that were left to last minute accidentally, because I did have to do a lot into it other than just the clothes. I did also the choreography before the dance and the planning involved, because my stage manager JC is amazing, but sometimes I would forget to communicate because everything was in my head, and I would get into my head, and it was just a whole deal where I would forget that other people existed for like the weekends when I was left on my own. I would just I wouldn't lock myself, but I would be in my room and just start working, and working on the show, on everything that I could, and it was wonderful to finally be able to experience. I am so happy, and I thank all my teachers for it because, as I said in my program, I couldn't have done it without Miss Moore, who taught me to be more confident in myself and in my body, but also Chris Spiller and Miss Williams and Miss Harfield, because without them I would never have the confidence in my abilities to do this, because I did lose a lot of confidence somehow in middle school, but just they really helped me build up that confidence, and I would not be able to talk for this long because it is, and be able to create this and talk in front of the audience, like even though it was only a few people, it was maybe 20 people, I would not have been able to talk to them without them, because I don't know where I'd be without those teachers. They've become just people will always look up to, people I will always know that I don't know where I would be without them. And just huge shout out before I finish this, and just because that is everything that went into it. There was just the planning, the designing, and the trying to create my own patterns, and the buying the fabric online, which was a bit more than I would have liked, because it's a lot harder to get the fabric that you want if you can't feel the fabric and you can't see how it drapes for yourself, because the camera doesn't get everything. And like something important to remember too, that the camera doesn't get everything, and sometimes it's the screen that you can't really see the shade of fabric that it is, or it's not captured it can't be perfectly captured unless it's in person, because the most reliable thing you have is your eyes, hopefully. But yes, and just a final thank you before I reach that 30-minute mark, and yeah, thank you so much for looking into this and staying with me through the 30 minutes that I have been talking about the progress that was in the show. And just thank you, and hope you have a good rest of your day or night or rest of your life. Good rest of your life is good. Bye.